In the village of Umwogbai, there lived a girl named Adaeze. Her face was a blessing from the gods themselves, but her beauty became a curse she never asked to carry. It drew the eyes of 3 other daughters of the land, Nneka, Chinye, and Amora. And in their hearts, a seed of envy took root, a seed that grew into a dark and tangled forest, leading them to dig a pit, not for treasure, but for a soul. This is a tale that asks a painful question: can the light of one single star threaten the entire sky? To all who listen, young couples building your first home, families guiding your children, individuals walking your path alone, hear the wisdom of the old ones. Jealousy is a poison you prepare for another, but you are the one who is forced to drink it. It can blind a woman to her own gifts, turn a friend into a foe, and make a sister forget that another's light does not dim her own. This is why we are here. Welcome to Echoes from the Baobab Tree, where the timeless spirit of Africa comes alive through the power of storytelling. So, if your heart has been stirred by this whisper on the wind, join our storytelling community. Help us keep these echoes alive. Subscribe to this channel, ring the bell of remembrance, and share this story with someone who needs to hear its lesson. For when a story is shared, it is no longer a memory, it becomes a prophecy. Let's continue. If someone had told Adaeze that jealousy could make girls dig a grave for a living person, she would have laughed until her sides ached. But now, as she shivered in the deepening dark, she knew the bitter truth: envy wears the softest smile and speaks in the sweetest tone before it strikes. Her name was Adaeze, a name that means a king's daughter, and in the small village of Umwogbai, she was often called Vomolo, the beauty of the gods. She never asked for the title. She never sought the eyes that followed her from the moment she was old enough to balance a clay pot on her head and walk to the stream. Her parents, Motsi and Lolo Nwankwo, were not rich. They were humble farmers whose wealth was in the rich, dark earth, their small plots surrounded by yam and cassava ridges. Her mother's laughter was a melody that could brighten the gloomiest harmattan morning. Her father, a man of few words, believed silence was a shield against trouble. Life was simple, but it was peaceful until other people's envy began to shape her reality. The trouble began with whispers that rustled through the village square like dry leaves. Girls her age would giggle and clutch each other as she passed. At first, Adaeze dismissed it. But one afternoon at the Umumiri, the women's stream, she heard a sharp hiss cut through the water's gentle murmur. "Look at her," one voice said. "See how she walks as if the earth itself should feel honored to carry her." Adaeze turned. It was Nneka, Chinye, and Amora, a trio who moved through the village like a single entity, their unity forged in shared spite. Their eyes, sharp with a mix of mockery and venom, were fixed on her. Adaeze offered a timid, hopeful smile, believing kindness was a language everyone understood. It was a language they refused to speak. From that day, she became their favorite subject. Their taunts became the soundtrack of her life: beauty, fine girl, noble achievement, or do you think the Prince of Aba will come down from his palace for you because your skin glows like polished mahogany? They would mimic her graceful walk, their own movements becoming a crude, exaggerated parody. Adaeze would return home, her spine straight, her head high, but the moment she closed the door to her hut, the dam would break. Silent tears would trace paths through the dust on her feet. Her mother, Lolo, always noticed. "My daughter," she would whisper, drawing Adaeze into her warm, comforting embrace, brushing her hair with gentle fingers. "Even the sweetest udara fruit attracts the most persistent flies. Do not let their darkness dim the light the gods gave you." Her words were a bomb, but they could not stop the sting. Being beautiful in Umwogbai felt less like a blessing and more like a curse inscribed on her forehead. A new scene, the Festival of New Yam. During the annual Irigi festival, the village was alive with drumming and celebration. Adaeze, hoping to blend in, wore a simple but elegant wrapper. As the young women danced, she joined in, her movements a natural, fluid poetry that told stories of the harvest. For a moment, she forgot the whispers, lost in the rhythm of the drums. But then she saw them. Nneka, Chinye, and Amora, standing at the edge of the circle, their arms crossed. They began to mock her dance, their jerky movements drawing sneers from a few onlookers. The prince of their community, a handsome young man named Chibik, was watching. His eyes, Adaeze was sure, were filled with pity, not admiration. The joy of the dance drained from her, and she slipped away, the vibrant music now sounding like a funeral dirge in her ears. The persecution soon took a darker, more sinister turn. The girls began to call her names like NWA Ohomio, spirit child. They whispered that her beauty was not natural, that her mother must have visited the dark grove at midnight to make a pact for her daughter's face. Soon, even some elders in the village began to look at her with suspicion, crossing to the other side of the path when she approached. Lolo was furious. "They will not use their folk tongues to destroy my child's name," she declared, her voice shaking with a maternal fury. But Motsi Nwankwo, ever the pragmatist, simply shook his head. "The wind will always blow, and people will always talk. Let it pass. It is one thing to be told to ignore the wind, and another to be standing in a hurricane." When even the children at the stream began to point and laugh, Lolo stopped sending Adaeze to the market altogether. She feared for her daughter's safety and spirit. So, Adaeze retreated, her world shrinking to the family compound. She helped on the farm and learned her mother's recipes, but the loneliness was a physical ache. She would peep through the bamboo fence, watching Nneka and her friends, their laughter ringing like bells as they walked to the village square. She ached for that simple, uncomplicated belonging. Then, the town crier's gong echoed through Umwogbai, announcing news that set every heart ablaze. The king of Aba was seeking a wife for his son, Prince Chibik. A grand dance would be held at the royal palace, and every maiden of good character was invited. The village erupted in a frenzy of excitement. Looms worked overtime weaving new George wrappers, and the air was filled with the scent of palm oil and the sound of girls practicing dance steps. Adaeze had no intention of going. She knew the mockery that awaited her was a trap she could not escape. But Lolo would not hear of it. "Adaeze, you will go," she said, her voice firm as iron. "Do not let the fear in small hearts cage the destiny written in the stars. Who knows? Chiyaji Ekwi, perhaps your God will agree on that day." With her mother's insistence, a small flame of hope flickered to life within her. Lolo brought out a chest and from it, drew a wrapper of deep indigo, embroidered with silver threads that caught the light like 1,000 stars. It had been her own mother's. She fastened a string of ancient cowrie shells around Adaeze's neck. "You look like the queen you were born to be," Lolo said, her eyes shimmering with pride. But while Adaeze dreamed of a night of magic, a coven of envy was plotting her downfall. Nneka, Chinye, and Amora met at the stream at dawn, their voices low and conspiratorial. "Do you think Omalo will dare to show her face?" Amora asked, her voice tight. Nneka's eyes narrowed. "If she comes, the prince will not see any of us. We will be invisible. Her shadow will eclipse us all. Then we must ensure her shadow never falls upon the palace grounds," Chinye concluded. Their plan was born of cunning malice. They began a campaign of false friendship. A few days later, they arrived at the Nwankwo compound, their faces stretched into wide, unconvincing smiles, bearing gifts of roasted groundnuts and sweet oranges as a peace offering. Adaeze was stunned into silence. "We are sorry for our foolishness," Nneka said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We were children. Now we see that beauty is a gift to the whole village, not a threat." Lolo watched from the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression granite. Later, she pulled Adaeze aside. "NWAM, be careful. Anigi Agbanwe Ago, a snake does not change. It only sheds its skin to remain the same." But Adaeze's heart, so starved for companionship, was a fertile ground for their lies. She wanted to believe. The girls started visiting daily. They braided her hair with new patterns, laughed at her jokes, and praised her dance steps. She began to let her guard down, mistaking the wolves' admiration for friendship. One afternoon, swept up in the joy of having companions, she showed them the magnificent indigo and silver wrapper. They gasped in unison. "You will outshine the moon itself," Amora said, her smile not reaching the cold calculation in her eyes. Adaeze did not see it. She only felt the warmth of inclusion. Later, deep in the bush, the three girls toiled. Their hatred was a physical force, fueling their muscles as they dug. Sweat poured from their brows, and their hands blistered as they broke the earth with hoes and shovels. They dug for days, until the pit was deep and wide, a dark scar in the forest floor, covered cunningly with weak branches and leaves. The morning of the dance arrived. Lolo woke Adaeze before the first cockcrow. She hugged her tightly, her body trembling. "NWAM, listen to me. Do not follow them anywhere. Go to the palace alone. I had a bad dream, a hawk circling a dove." "I will be careful, Nne," Adaeze promised, her own heart fluttering with a mixture of excitement and dread. Lolo left for the palace early to help with the cooking for the grand occasion. A few hours later, the trio arrived, resplendent in their bright pinks and yellows, looking like tropical birds. "Adaeze," Neko called. "We have come to escort you. Let's take the shortcut through the Iroko path. We must keep our finery a surprise from the other girls." Adaeze hesitated, her mother's warning echoing in her mind. "Oh," Chinya interjected with a dismissive wave. "Don't tell us you are still listening to an old woman's superstitions. We are sisters now." The word sisters was a powerful spell. Adaeze's desire to belong overpowered her intuition. She smiled weakly and joined them. They walked together, laughing and chatting about the prince. For a moment, Adaeze felt a genuine, soaring happiness. But as they delved deeper into the bush, the laughter died. The path narrowed, and the forest grew silent, as if holding its breath. The birds had stopped singing. A cold dread coiled in Adaeze's stomach. "Just this way, Adaeze," Neka said, pointing to a seemingly clear patch. "The path is smoother here." She took a step forward, and the world disappeared. The ground gave way with a sickening crunch of branches. A scream, raw and terrified, tore from her lungs as she plunged into the darkness. She landed with a brutal thud, a sharp, white-hot pain shooting up her leg. Dirt filled her mouth and nose. Dazed and disoriented, she looked up. Above, three faces peered down at her, silhouetted against the fading sky, their features twisted into masks of triumphant cruelty. "Look at the village beauty now," Neka sneered. "The queen-to-be. You wanted to dance? Dance for the worms in that hole." Their laughter, cold and sharp, rained down on her like stones. "Please," Adaeze begged, her voice cracking. "Why? Why are you doing this? You think you are better than us?" Amara spat. "Let's see if the prince will want you when you are crippled and covered in filth." And with that, they turned and walked away, their voices fading into the forest, leaving her in a silence broken only by her own ragged sobs. She screamed until her throat was raw, clawing at the hard, earthen walls. But it was useless. The pit was too deep. As the sky dimmed from blue to indigo to black, the full weight of her predicament crashed down upon her. She was trapped, broken, and utterly alone. No one was coming. Later that night, a hunter named Dyke was tracking a wounded antelope. Known as the best tracker in the region, Dyke moved like a shadow, his senses attuned to the forest's secrets. He was about to give up when a sound, faint and broken, drifted on the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was a whimper, a human sound of utter despair. He followed the sound, his torch cutting a swath through the oppressive darkness. He found the pit, and his heart clenched. Peering down, he saw a figure huddled at the bottom, her beautiful wrapper torn and dirty. "Child!" "Are you alive?" he called down, his voice deep and calm. Adaeze looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and desperate hope. "Please, help me." "Be still, NWAM, Dyke said. "I will get you out." He swiftly uncoiled the strong rope he always carried. After securing it to a sturdy tree, he lowered it down and, with immense strength, pulled Adaeze out of her atom prison. She collapsed onto the forest floor, shivering uncontrollably. He gave her water from his gourd and, seeing her injured leg, fashioned a splint from a branch. He knew her parents would be sick with worry. But a thought struck him. Taking her directly to Umwogbai might allow her tormentors to spin more lies. The king's justice was what she needed. So, he changed course, carrying her through the night towards the royal palace in Aba. Back at the palace, the celebration was in full swing, but Prince Chibik's heart was heavy. He watched the maidens dance, their movements practiced and eager, but he felt nothing. His eyes kept scanning the crowd for a face he had only glimpsed once, the girl with the graceful dance at the IRIG festival. She was nowhere to be seen. "I have not found my bride," he finally told his father, the king. The music halted. A stunned silence fell over the crowd as the king announced the prince's decision. Lolo Nwankwo, who had been searching the crowd frantically, felt a cold terror grip her heart. She found her husband. "She is not here. Our Adaeze is missing." They rushed to the king, their faces etched with panic. Lolo, through her tears, told him of the 3 girls who had promised to escort their daughter. The king, his brow furrowed with concern, summoned Nneka, Chinye, and Amora. They stood before him, their eyes downcast, and swore they knew nothing, that Adaeze had never met up with them. Just as the king was ordering a wider search at first light, a commotion arose at the palace gates. Hunter Dyke entered, supporting a limping, dirt-stained Adaeze. The crowd gasped and parted. The sight of her, the beautiful Adaeze, broken and trembling, sent a wave of shock through the hall. Her parents rushed to her, holding her as if she might vanish. When Adaeze had been given water and a place to sit, she told her story. Her voice was soft but clear, a damning testimony that echoed in the silent palace. She spoke of the false friendship, the walk into the bush, and the cruel betrayal at the pit. The king's face darkened with a thunderous rage. He turned to the 3 girls, who were now trembling violently. "Look at me and speak the truth," he commanded, his voice like rolling thunder. Under the weight of his gaze and the damning evidence, their resolve shattered. Chinye broke first, collapsing to her knees. "We are sorry," she wailed. "Our mothers always praised her. We were consumed by jealousy. We only wanted to scare her, to ruin her chance." The other 2 joined her, their pleas for forgiveness filling the hall. But it was too late. The king's justice was swift and severe. "You dug a pit of malice," he boomed. "Now you will dwell in one of stone. Take them away. Let them be imprisoned for 3 cycles of the harvest. And when they are released, they shall be outcast. No one in all the villages of our kingdom shall speak to them, trade with them, or offer them shelter. They are dead to this community." As the guards led the weeping girls away, a hush fell over the crowd. Then, Prince Chibik stepped forward. He walked not towards the throne, but towards Adaeze. He knelt before her, ignoring the dirt on her clothes and the tears on her cheeks. He looked into her eyes, seeing not just the beauty that was so often praised, but the strength and resilience that had carried her through the darkness. He turned to the crowd. "The search is over. I have found my wife." A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Who was he talking about? Prince Chibik then gently took Adaeze's hand and helped her to her feet. He brushed the dust from her hair, his gesture one of profound tenderness. Her character in the face of cruelty is more beautiful than any rapper, and her heart, tested by fire, is purer than gold. It is her. The crowd erupted into joyous cheers, the sound a cleansing wave washing away the earlier horror. Hunter Dyke was richly rewarded with land and cattle. As for Adaeze, her destiny, written in the stars, had been fulfilled. The jealous girls had tried to bury her, but they never knew she was a seed. And from the dark pit they dug for her, she rose to claim a throne. That's the story of Adaeze. Kindly like and subscribe for more content.